the moment a child can walk and talk is, I'm afraid, the moment the nightmare truly begins. From brewing up mammoth messes to wriggling their way into the stickiest of situations. Join me as we take a look at some moments when parents didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If you've ever experienced the horror that is watching a young child attempting to eat, you'll know that food goes anywhere but in their mouths. And one food that is sure to cause instant chaos is, of course, every child's favorite, chocolate. But the proof really is in the pudding, as you'll see here with this little girl, Scarlett.
What did you do? What did you do? Scarlett? What did you do with your chocolate bar?
Yeah, I don't think it's quite your shade, Scarlett. Rest assured, any plans of saving the face chocolate for later were well and truly thwarted as Dad soon got to cleaning it up. And surprisingly, he didn't seem too bothered either, though I imagine as a parent brown messes certainly come in much less pleasant varieties. Still, it goes without saying such chocolate catastrophes can leave you questioning all of your life's choices. Worse yet, this little girl Celine was deep in an Oreo binge when, alas, her cookies and cream dreams were shattered as Dad stopped her in her tracks. Something which didn't exactly go down well with her.
Hey, what's wrong? I think you had enough cookies. You had enough cookies, baby. You had enough cookies.
As upsetting as Celine's cookie calamity might be, and trust me, my heart breaks for her, it looks like she's already eaten enough for one day. Though who truly knows what the limits are for a child's insatiable appetite for sweet snacks? It's one of life's great mysteries. Moving on, one of the many complications of having children is that you can never take your eyes off of them. Like ever. And if you do, well, I'm afraid you have sealed your own fate, as you can bet your bottom dollar that your little troublemaker will have wreaked havoc in some way or another. Like, for example, this curious little soul who regrettably pried her way into the Desitin, a type of diaper rash cream. Is it possible to drop babies off at the dry cleaners? My favorite part is after having experienced the dawning realization of the error of her ways, she gives the Desitin yet another taste while still crying. Now that, folks, is the face of a little girl who learned her lesson the hard way. And in the name of entertainment, I am pleased to say that there are plenty more Desitin disasters where that came from. I mean, just check out the horror show that this next mom walked in on.
What did you do? You are in huge trouble, by the way. Like, super big, huge trouble. Like, really big trouble.
This pretended to be sad.
Yeah, you are not supposed to do that, are you? Are you okay, Bradley?
Just a big sis making sure her little bro doesn't get diaper rash on his face. Or, as she says, pretending to be sun cream. Perfectly innocent, right? Bradley seems pleased at least.
Are you okay, Bradley?
But the reality is there are only 3 things for certain in this life: death, taxes, and the mischievous wrath of an older sibling. And as you can see by this snap, you're never too young to fall victim to it either. Welcome to the world, little one. With the help of your sibling Sharpie, you're well on your way to becoming the next big-face tattooed hip-hop star. Returning to Desitin disasters again, it was back in 2021, and New York mom Wendy Price had the fright of her life as she walked into this. Yep, and what her daughters Jamie and Morgan claimed to be an attempt to look like Elsa from Frozen, they had lathered their hair and faces in Desitin. But despite their efforts, I have to say they have a much greater likeness to Olaf. But that's beside the point, as Desitin is incredibly difficult to get out of hair due to it containing zinc oxide, beeswax, and other oils. Panicked, Wendy attempted to wash the girl's hair, though this didn't do much as zinc oxide is water insoluble. Eventually, per the recommendations of Facebookers, she managed to remove the Desitin with a home remedy of cornstarch and baby oil. The girls in their hair are completely fine now, though I think it'll be a while before Wendy is truly able to let it go. But let's move on from wannabe Elsa's to something more closely resembling Doc Brown from Back to the Future. This little girl was left looking a ghostly shade of white after a run-in with a bottle of talcum powder. The most hilarious part is how the powder made the flattened top of her hair the same color as her face, resulting in the illusion of a receding hairline. Not that male pattern baldness is a laughing matter, of course. What is pretty laughable, though, is this next dad who willingly gave his toddler a hosepipe, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, only ended up in chaos.
Water our plants. Oh! Hey, we're watering the plants. You can do it. Oh! Why am I wet?
I mean, you really can't blame her, can you? What's most concerning, however, is the pure joy on her face as she terrorizes her dad. I'd keep an eye on that one if I were him. But if you're still at a loss for reasons not to have kids, then just take a look at this little smurf who not only covered himself in blue paint, but the couch too. Were it not for the blue paint, you'd see guilt written all over his face. Likewise here with this kid who, as you can see, gave the TV a good moisturizing. Because I'm sure we all agree, LED screens always look so dry. I'm sure that was a fun cleanup job for the parents. You see, this kind of mess is the main reason I'm in no rush to have kids. It has nothing to do with my repulsiveness to women and crippling awkwardness, of course. Nothing at all. All jokes aside, kids, by their very nature, love to make messes. But it's actually a pretty important behavior. In fact, according to Dr. Dana M. Cohen, an expert in early childhood development at Royal Oaks Beaumont Hospital in Michigan, mess making is not only a result of kids' insatiable curiosity, but crucial to their developing sensory and motor skills. And sure, that might sound all sunshine and rainbows, but being the parent who has to deal with the resulting messes is a whole other story. Just remember, Ma and Pa, the kid's learning. Try and remain calm as your kid spills all of the dang dog food all over the floor. Thanks, little Tammy. Thanks so much. Now, as a parent, I'm sure there's no greater feeling than your child's affection. Like, for example, one kid who left their parents an endearing hugs and kisses note. Though I might have forgotten to mention that it was etched into their car bonnet with a stone. Still, at least you can fix or replace a car. Children, on the other hand, you're stuck with for life. As we know, children are innately curious, and as their little hands and feet attempt to navigate the world that is still relatively new to them, they can wind up wriggling themselves into some, let's just say, sticky situations. Take, for example, this little girl who was evidently dumbfounded by a bizarre contraption known as a toilet. It's an easy mistake to make. Jokes aside, how exactly she managed to get tangled up with the toilet seat or what her ultimate goal was remains a mystery. Nevertheless, you could argue that she had a better idea of how the toilet worked than this next little girl who evidently mistook the toilet bowl for her cereal bowl. Who wants Cheerios? Now, where there's a hole or gap, you can guarantee a kid will put their fingers, toes, or worse yet, head right in there. Which is precisely what happened here when 4-year-old Parker prowled his way up the cat's scratching post and got his noggin jammed. Mom Cynthia attempted to free him, but alas, had to call in reinforcements. Fortunately, the fire brigade had Parker out of his cat scratching shackles in no time. Though it's safe to say he certainly learned his lesson the hard way. Another embarrassing misadventure comes from a Redditor who shared this snap of himself as a child. Perhaps having seen too many spy movies, the little adventurer lifted the air vent cover and shimmied his way down. Though, as I'm sure you can guess by his wedged torso and teary eyes, things didn't go quite to plan. And while we're still on the topic of kids getting stuck, you might want to steer them clear of traffic cones lest they end up like this little fella right here. Seems someone's been watching a little too much Toy Story. Legend has it that he still wanders the earth to this day with his cone head hopelessly bashing into things. Of all the places kids have gotten stuck though, this next one is my favorite. I mean, just imagine the hilarity of walking into a room and finding your child like this. I mean, if you can fit, then why not use the fish tank as a private swimming pool? And this isn't the only occasion a toddler has gone on their own quest to find Nemo. Just check out this kid who even went as far to take a drag of the water filter. Somewhere in that tank are some deeply traumatized fish, physically and emotionally. They thought they were safe from anything more serious than children tapping on the glass. How wrong they were. Granted, a fish tank is a pretty wild place for a child to get themselves, but what are the odds of them worming their way into an arcade claw machine? Well, considering that this was something featured in the previous episode of this series and also something that happened yet again to this little boy in 2017, you might want to watch your little ones around arcades. This story was shared by Macy Hollingshead, who explained how her younger cousin so desperately wanted a stuffed toy that he slithered his way through the drop zone. Which might have initially seemed like a good idea, but as I'm sure you can tell by his expression, it proved regrettable when he found himself stuck. How he got out was not explained, though. I'd like to think that someone threw a few quarters into the machine and grabbed him with the claw. But if we're talking about children getting stuck, then the story coming up next is the most literal interpretation of that idea. It goes without saying that summer break and its Christmas counterpart are very exciting times for children. Heck, the fact that no working adults except teachers get to experience those precious weeks of freedom is truly one of life's great tragedies. But back in 2008, 10-year-old Diego from Monterrey, Mexico decided to go to extreme measures as not to return to school at the end of the Christmas break. Yep, on the morning he was due to return to school using industrial glue, he stuck his right hand to his bed. Due to the strength of the glue, his hand couldn't be easily removed without injury, so his mom spent almost 2 hours trying to pry his hand away with water, oil, and nail polish remover. But to no avail. However, eventually paramedics arrived and managed to carefully peel Diego away from his bed just in time for class. So close, Diego, and yet so far. Next time, use some mint. But with school and kids being natural enemies, it's not surprising that some little terrors will stop at nothing to avoid class. And if you're not quite aware of how severe the situation can be, then I invite you to watch this next clip. Yep, this little hellraiser despised school so much that he literally took a knife from the kitchen and slashed his mom's car tires. What exactly happened to the child after this? Well, I dread to think. Though if he were my kid, I can assure you he'd be on a one-way trip to the orphanage. Of course, only after he'd mowed enough lawns to pay to fix my tire. In other car catastrophes, a child in Maidenhead, England was briefly left alone in the car back in 2019 when he decided to experiment with a few buttons and levers. Only in doing so, he released the handbrake and sent the car reeling backwards. Luckily, the car was promptly stopped in its tracks by a wall and the kid was unscathed. But on a serious note, for the safety of your child and others, don't leave your kid in the car alone. They don't always understand that it's not the same as Mario Kart. Okay, so something I'm sure we all did as kids was fake being sick to get out of school. And while the usual go-to is a faked high temperature and a feeble cough, one girl tried something a little different when she faked, of all things, amnesia. Having watched an episode of Hannah Montana where the character Jackson pretended to have amnesia, the then second grader staged a fall in the school restroom and then proceeded to tell all her friends that she had lost her memory as a result. And well, to cut a long story short, this is her wired up to machines in hospital while the puzzled doctors performed tests on her. The whole time, she was faking it. Easy for us to laugh about, but just put yourself in her parents' shoes, who were likely not only extremely concerned, but also footing the hospital bill too. Kids, you gotta love them, right? But when it comes to bad behavior, this next mom takes no prisoners. After learning about her son's misbehavior and disrespect towards his school teacher, Chiquita Hill did what any mother would do and had her son arrested. Wait, what? Well, not quite. You see, with her son Sean being 10 years old, Chiquita was concerned that if she didn't iron out his bad behavior now, he might grow up to be, for want of a better word, a deadbeat. Hoping to scare away his bad attitude, she got in touch with the local authorities who agreed to perform a fake arrest. And with cuffs and all, it's pretty evident by Sean's face that Chiquita's plan worked. Of course, they didn't actually take him downtown. In fact, he was only in the cop car around 5 minutes. Still, he was left crying, shaking, and seemingly traumatized, leaving people divided on whether Chiquita went too far or simply taught her son a valuable life lesson, which is pretty much the divided response to all the greatest, most creative parental punishments. But why don't you let me know your opinion on this unusual punishment down in the comments? And while you're at it, I bet you can't use your nose to like and subscribe to the channel. Go on, prove me wrong. Alright, now let's get back to some times when parents didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Now, following on from that last story, something you might want to have your child thrown in jail for is them stealing over $3,000 from you, which genuinely happened to Massachusetts mom Jessica Nunez. Having received a dispatch notification from Amazon when she hadn't knowingly ordered anything, Jessica initially assumed it to be a fraudulent charge and immediately checked her account. Only what she discovered left her jaw on the floor. It turned out her account had been charged for 5 pink toy dirt bikes, 5 blue toy dirt bikes, a toy Jeep, and perhaps most incriminating of all, 10 pairs of cowgirl boots. It had one person's name written all over it, 5-year-old Lila. She had told her mom that she wanted to use her phone to play a game, but actually carried out her grand heist worth over $3,000. But before Lila could properly get her mitts on her 10 dirt bikes and stylish boots, Mom luckily managed to cancel and return all of the items. In the end, all that Lila's spree amounted to was a verbal beatdown and a lecture about the value of money. Score! You see, the problem is children are often quite selfish when they first come into the world, so it can take a while for them to learn that they can't just have everything they want. Still, that doesn't stop them trying, as you can see in this next clip.
So I told him he couldn't have an ice cream, and then all of a sudden he ran upstairs. And now he seems like he is very far away and being very quiet. Michael? Mikey!
Sorry.
What are you doing?
I'm just eating. I'm just gonna about eat a taco in a little bit after I ate this all on.
I told you needed to eat your dinner first.
Okay, just in a sec.
Not just a sec. Get downstairs with that right now.
I mean, who could ever say no to him? After all, he did apologize. Still, if my mom still won't let me, a grown man, have ice cream before my dinner, then neither can little Michael here. It's only fair. But while we're on the topic of criminal behavior, as kids, we're taught to call the police in case of an emergency. Such emergencies might include, but are not limited to, robbery, assault, reckless driving, and difficult math homework. What? Yep. Back in 2019, Indiana police dispatcher Antonia Bundy received a call from a distressed little boy with a huge emergency. Math. After telling Antonia his woes of being an elementary schooler, the kid asked for help talking him through his math homework. And with Antonia proving surprisingly willing to help with his fractions, the kid's problems were no more. That's what the police are for, right? Well, no. Despite Antonia's commendable attitude, the police did have to issue a statement explaining that homework-related matters are not a valid use of police time. Unbelievable, huh? Now, relative to other members of the animal kingdom, it's pretty interesting just how, for want of a better word, dumb human babies are. I mean, you only have to compare a newborn human, basically unable to even hold its own head up, let alone walk or feed itself, with a newborn giraffe or zebra that can run within the first 45 minutes of its life. And you'll realize just how comparatively unprepared for life human babies are. Though according to neuroscientists, human babies' brains are less developed at birth that give them greater malleability to complex ideas like language as they experience the world. In other words, humans need to allocate brain space to being able to continually adapt to the world around them, as opposed to getting the very specific set of preloaded software in a baby giraffe's brain, for example. A giraffe may learn to walk quickly, and a human will eventually, even if slowly, but a giraffe will never learn to read. We could spend all day theorizing the intricacies of the human brain and the intelligence children eventually gain, but what I really mean to show you are some hilarious clips of kids being, well, stupid. Case in point, check out what happened when one mom turned her back for a minute in the electrical appliance section of the store. Try before you buy, am I right? Safe to say his mom wasn't best pleased with her barber kiddo's new reverse mohawk. And perhaps equally as thoughtless of an action, take a look at this little tyke who couldn't quite wrap his head around the logistics of eating whilst wearing a mask. And which Spider-Verse did this one come from? Scary to contemplate if he actually were the savior of humanity. That is, unless he's figured out some ingenious diet method the rest of us don't know about. But for a kid who definitely doesn't have much of a clue what he's doing, this next fella had a bit of a hard time chasing down his balloon. Like a dog chasing its tail, but with a little less dignity. Credit where credit is due, his determination is to be admired, though his comprehension leaves a lot to be desired. Not hard to imagine that he could well be at that for hours. The truth is, most children can be entertained relatively easily. I mean, just check out this mom who gave her kiddo a bucket of water and a paintbrush, allowing him to quote-unquote paint the fence. Hours of fun and, more importantly, peace and quiet for mom. By contrast, what isn't quite so peaceful is having to go to the emergency room, especially when it's with your teenage son because he has somehow on this God-given earth swallowed the squeaker from a dog toy.
Where are you, Anthony?
In the emergency room.
Why are you in the emergency room?
I inhaled the doggy toy.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure.
How can you tell? Okay.
But hey, at least you know he's alive and breathing on account of him letting out a squeak every time. The squeaker was later removed, but this is precisely why women live longer than us guys. But if you needed more proof of that, I now ask you to turn your attention to this kid, who somehow got himself quite literally in a bit of a knot.
Ow. God, Nick. I need scissors. It's getting red.
You don't have scissors. How the hell did you do
Can we
this?
cut it? Ow. I need to get my foot through it. Like, try and put my heel through it. I go red. It's all getting
God, Nick, I'm gonna kill you.
Yikes, kids really are the gift that keeps on giving. After tirelessly struggling to untangle him from the seatbelt, it seemed as if he would be belt-bound for eternity. However, with a little more squirming around, freedom was soon within arm's reach, or rather, legs' reach.
Oh, God, I'm gonna kill you.
This is gonna kill me.
Here, keep going. Okay, all right. Hold on. It's gonna hurt. Hold on.
Oh, man.
You're such an idiot.
Oh.
Don't do it again.
Okay.
Sweet relief. But will this mother ever feel true relief from her wee lad's stupid actions? I have a feeling those will get worse before they get better. Moving on to yet more stupidity of the younger male species, get a load of this story shared by Bobby Schroeder on Twitter. When Bobby's 9-year-old nephew was specifically forbidden from making a Facebook account by his mom, he bravely went ahead and made one anyway. After all, mom would be none the wiser, right? Well, his little plan fell apart immediately when he sent his own mom a friend request. Call it a hunch, but that might not be the best stealth approach, bud. Safe to say that with his level of covertness, a career as an international spy or undercover cop is not on the cards for him. Kids aren't just stupid though, they're so much more than that. They can also be pretty weird too. Of course, with everything still being new to them, not to mention running on a very undercooked brain, they're bound to have a few quirks. Like for example this little girl who, well, there really are no words for it. Just take a look.
Come here. Did I see a worm in your pocket? Why do you have a worm in your pocket? Get it out now.
Want it?
No, I don't want it. Is it alive? Yeah, it's alive. Why are you walking around with a worm in your pocket? Throw that over there.
In the water?
Anywhere. Girl, you got some more in there? Huh? Girl, get them out now. What are you doing?
What? I like worms.
I know you lying. Open your hand. Kylie, be for real. Open your hand.
I don't know.
Yep, while most 6-year-old girls dream of fluffy bunnies and unicorns, Kylie, on the other hand, would rather a pocket full of worms. And while her caring, nature-loving character is to be admired, there's no denying just how unnerving a fistful of worms is. Likewise, check out this snap of a little boy getting uncomfortably up close and personal with a pig. I guess he just wondered if it tastes like bacon. Being gross, though, is just part of being a kid. For example, this toddler literally threw himself to the floor in despair because he wanted to carry the dog poop.
Why are you crying? You want to carry the poop?
Yeah.
Okay, here.
Yeah.
Here. Are you happy now?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, childhood. Where not being able to carry a bag of feces is literally the worst thing to have ever happened to you. While the motivations for wanting the responsibilities of poop bag bearer will likely never be revealed, it's certainly clear that the inner workings of a child's brain are an eternal mystery. I mean, just take a look at this next little girl who wept for something that was, at least for now, impossible.
Why are you crying?
I have boobies.
You wish what?
I wish I had boobies.
You'll get boobies when you get a little older.
No, I won't.
It's okay.
Patience, little one. Don't wish away your childhood. But on to more childhood eccentricities, and when one father told his daughter they could wear costumes to bed for one night only, he got some pretty unexpected results. His elder daughter, Lucy Jo, opted for something quite predictable. That was an Elsa dress, both stylish and somewhat practical for bedtime. Younger sister Nora had quite a different approach, though. Take a look.
Okay, Lucy Jo wanted to wear a costume to bed instead of jammies. So she picked out Elsa because it's kind of like jammies and looks comfy. Nora wanted a costume too. So she's a hot dog.
And it's here we see the two types of little girls in the world. Let's just say I know whose costume I prefer. But speaking of bizarre costume ideas, when it came to Halloween, this next kid wanted to dress up as something very specific and, well, weird. Where most little boys would dream of going trick-or-treating dressed as a scary zombie, a vampire, or perhaps a pumpkin, this little chap pleaded to go as a pair of pants. As in literally, a pair of pants. I mean, legs with a pair of arms coming from the hips plus a head and no torso is pretty scary in its own right. Or at least it would be if it wasn't so darn cute. But if you really want to see a scary costume, then just check out this next one. Having told people all throughout his childhood that he'd met the Michael Jackson, one now grown man was horrified to look back on this photograph and find that the Michael Jackson he thought he'd met was about as real as MJ's nose. He has no idea who this guy actually was, but there's something pretty horrifying about him. though arguably still less scary and dangerous for a kid than hanging around with the real MJ. And that, I'm afraid, brings us to the end. Did you ever do anything stupidly hilarious as a kid? Let me know down in the comments, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.